Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us here at Railbookers for one of our online presentations. Great to have you with me for this week's topic, which is the Canadian Rockies and beyond by rail. So thanks very much for taking the time to tune in to our on-demand sessions, and we will make a start. My name is Anna Davis. I'll be your host for the session today. And for those of you who are perhaps newer to Railbookers and what we do, we're just going to start with a few slides, just give you a bit of an introduction about the sorts of holidays that we put together and how we can help. So just wanted to mention a few points from the slides here. We've been creating these independent, tailor-made holidays by rail for a long time now, so we have a lot of expertise in putting together the holiday with all of the right requirements for you, from the best routes, the best timings, the best direction, and the best itineraries to make sure you have the best trip. We can also book up to 2 years in advance, which makes us unique in the space of rail. We can book all the way through now through to March 2024. What we'll discover as we go through the slides as well today is the flexibility that our holidays offer. Because they are independent, you're not traveling as part of a group, you do have the flexibility to put together exactly the trip that you want. So any destinations, any dates, the duration that you want to be away for. If the train runs on those days, we can build a holiday around that. And also, as we'll go through the trips today, looking at Canada specifically, you'll see that there are lots of different variations of our holidays, from luxury to cross-country journeys, to extending the stay, as I mentioned, or really creating an itinerary from scratch. We have the option to do all of that. Now, if you are planning your next trip, looking at where to go next this year or perhaps next year, we have a range of digital brochures available for you to download on our website at railbookers.co.uk, and you'll find a range of titles there, from our worldwide trips through to our Scottish holidays, cruise extensions, luxury journeys, a whole host of brochures there to help with the trip planning, to give you some suggestions and ideas. So do have a look at those on railbookers.co.uk. Now, I mentioned that our holidays are independent, not travelling as part of a group. There is no tour leader, but that doesn't mean that you're entirely on your own if you require assistance whilst you travel. You do benefit from our 24-hour support from our global offices, because we have teams, as you see on the map there, in the UK, in Canada, in the US, and also in Australia. So there's always somebody awake across the Railbookers offices should you need our assistance whilst you're travelling. I just wanted to mention some of the partners that we work with worldwide, some of the logos there on the screen. These are just a selection of some of the rail companies that we work with around the world to put together very much this one-stop shop nature to our trip. So, of course, we take care of the rail tickets, but also the hotel accommodation, sightseeing, transfers. We can also book flights as well. We're ATOL protected, so we have that option too. And we can also book, as I say, transfers, ferries, car hire in some instances as well. So very much all the elements of the holiday, but booked up to 2 years in advance. So the reason you've tuned in today to find out more about the Canadian Rockies and beyond, and exploring this magnificent part of the world by train. So we're going to start with our great cities of Eastern Canada by rail. So this is an 8-day, 7-night holiday with a starting price of £949. Now, I should mention before we get underway with looking at these Canadian trips in a bit more detail, these prices don't include the flights across the Atlantic, but we can add those on to the package if you'd like us to do so. As I say, we're ATOL protected, so you have that peace of mind and trust with us for those flights to be added on to the trip. But as it stands, this trip starts in Toronto. You have a 2-night journey, a 2-night stay in Toronto. We include sightseeing in most of the cities that we send our customers to, so you'll have a hop-on, hop-off city pass to explore Toronto as you wish. You'll then travel over the course of the day. There's a day service through to Ottawa. You're based in Ottawa for a night, before then moving on to Montreal, and finally up to Quebec City. So these are all day services on this trip. You'll have 2 nights in Quebec to round off the stay. So just a few shots of what to expect whilst you're travelling. Of course, the CN Tower in Toronto dominates the skyline, but that hop on, hop off city pass really allows you to explore the parts of Toronto that interest you the most, and to also get your bearings. We can also add in, if you wanted to stay longer, we can also add in a day trip to Niagara, for example, so you have a full day out at the falls too, if you wish. You'll have a sightseeing tour in Ottawa as well, lots of history to explore, the Parliament buildings, for example, and a number of museums worth visiting in Ottawa. And then as you start to move through to Montreal and Quebec, becomes very much of a European flavour to these cities, as you can see here in Montreal, and then into Quebec City as well. A really different flavour to the city, and again, lots to explore. And you do have a guided tour in Quebec as well through some of the most historic areas as well. So Eastern Canada in isolation, looking beyond the Canadian Rockies, if you like. But we also then have a range of coast-to-coast trips that will include some of those destinations, as well as taking you through to the Rockies. So this, our ultimate Canada coast-to-coast trip, really an all-encompassing trip of Canada. It's a 17-day holiday with a starting price of £3,249. It starts in Halifax and will take you all the way through across Canada to Vancouver, as you see on the screen there. So let me just talk you through the itinerary a little bit before we look at some of the destinations. So as I say, you'll start in Halifax. You have a one-night stay there before you then travel overnight to Quebec City. So doing the previous itinerary in reverse here, really. Quebec through to Montreal, and Montreal through to Toronto. You have a two-night stay in Toronto, which this time does include a day trip out to Niagara Falls. Then, after your second night in Toronto, really begin the rail highlight of this trip, and that's travelling on board Via Rail's the Canadian service that takes you all the way through, essentially from Toronto to Vancouver. So I believe it's the second longest passenger train service run by a national operator, and in its entirety, as I say, it does Toronto to Vancouver in 4 nights. Initially, you'll just spend 3 nights on board the train, travelling across Canada from Toronto into the Rockies. You disembark in Jasper. You have a 2-night stay there, as well as then a 1-night stay in Banff, in the heart of Banff National Park. But you'll then, after those 3 nights, get back on the rails in Jasper to complete the final overnight journey to Vancouver, and you'll round up your holiday with a 2-night stay in Vancouver. So just some of the destinations that you'll visit on this trip then. So starting with Halifax in the Far East, I am told that it's an absolute haven for seafood lovers, some great seafood restaurants, and a really charming coastal community to start your Canadian trip in. You'll then also have a day trip through to Niagara, of course, including a trip on Maid of the Mist boat tour, but you'll also have a full day in and around the falls. You have some time to explore in the town itself, which is often forgotten about slightly. You'll have a lunch included here as well. So it's a full day trip collected from your hotel and taken back to the hotel at the end of the day's sightseeing. And then you'll move through, as I say, on board Via Rail through the heart of Canada across to the Rockies, and you'll have 2 nights here in Jasper National Park, as well as the 1 night in Banff, before then finishing off in Vancouver on the far west. You do again have the hop-on, hop-off city pass, which gets you into a number of the sites there, including the Vancouver Lookout, which has magnificent views over the city. Lots to do in Vancouver as well, and if you wanted to extend your stay so you can travel over to Victoria and spend a little bit more time in this area, then of course we can do that as well. So staying with Vancouver, and a little variation on the theme, is our Grand Circle of the Canadian Rockies trip. Now this is a 9-day holiday with a starting price of £3,199. What this does is combine Via Rail, but with the Rocky Mountaineer as well. So a number of our holidays in Canada combine travelling on both of those rail services, and this is a round trip from Vancouver. So you'll start initially with 1 night in Vancouver, before you then travel on the Rocky Mountaineer, which is of course a day service. So you'll have a full day on the Rocky Mountaineer taking you in to the Rockies to Kamloops. You have a 1 night stay in Kamloops before then travelling back on the Rocky Mountaineer from Kamloops to Banff. You have a 2-night stay in Banff, and then a transfer to Lake Louise. You have a 1-night stay in Lake Louise before then travelling up to Jasper for a 1-night stay, and then from there you'll take Via Rail back overnight from Jasper back to Vancouver to round off the holiday. So really combining, as I say, those two fantastic rail services, an overnight experience, of course, once in a lifetime trip on the Rocky Mountaineer as well as sightseeing tours in Banff National Park, Lake Louise. You have the admission to the Banff Gondola for views up Sulphur Mountain as well as a sightseeing tour on the Icefields Parkway. So lots included here, as well as those fantastic rail experiences. So have a little look at the famous navy blue and gold carriages here, of course, of the famous Rocky Mountaineer, just so you have an idea of what you'll experience if you choose to travel. So this is an example. This is a gold leaf carriage, which has the open air observation area, if you like, for customers whilst you're travelling. There are 2 classes of service on board Rocky Mountaineer. There is silver leaf and there is gold leaf. So let's have a look at those in a bit more detail. So silver leaf here, as you see, has the wide picture windows, the panoramic windows that run up to the ceiling. You have seating with 2 seats an aisle and 2 seats the other side. And this is where you'll stay for the duration of the journey, from Vancouver through to Kamloops and Kamloops through to Banff. So your food will be served at your seat. The staff on board offer fantastic service. The food, world class really, and prepared fresh to order on the train. And you'll, as I say, be served in your seat. And you'll also have drinks whilst you travel. You'll have some commentary from the team on board as you go. So that's Silverleaf. Gold leaf, by contrast, is a double level carriage. So you have on the top part of the carriage here, this observation area where you have the 2 seats, an aisle and 2 seats, and this is where you'll spend most of your time whilst you're travelling through the Rockies. As you see there, you have an attendant which they provide lots of excellent commentary about the nature, about the history of the track, the history of the train as you go. But then for your meal times on board, you will then travel via a short spiral staircase at the end of the carriage downstairs to the dining carriage. So this is underneath that observation area, and this is where you'll be served your meals and your drinks by the team on board. So just a slight difference there between the 2 levels. So you'll travel, as I say, initially to Kamloops, and you'll have a 1-night stay in the town of Kamloops there before embarking back on the Rocky Mountaineer to Banff, and you'll travel, if you wish, on the Banff Gondola here up to Sulphur Mountain with those fantastic views over Banff National Park. And you'll also travel to Lake Louise, so a transfer included from Banff up to the world famous resort of Lake Louise, staying in that magnificent hotel right on the shore of the lake, the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise, for 1 night before then travelling back to Jasper and back to Vancouver. Now, how about combining those 2 previous trips in one? And our Trans-Canada and Rockies adventure with Rocky Mountaineer does exactly that. So this is a 13-day trip with a starting price of £4,249. As you can see from the map there, really includes the cross-Canada experience, travelling from Toronto on Via Rail into the Rockies, and then finishing at the end of your trip with that journey from Banff to Vancouver via Kamloops on the Rocky Mountaineer, so doing the journey the other way round. So you'll have a 2-night stay in Toronto to start with that Niagara Falls day trip. You'll then spend the 3 nights on board Via Rail, travelling from Toronto through to Jasper. This time in reverse, you'll have a transfer from Jasper down to Lake Louise for a 1-night stay. You'll then move on to Banff for a 2-night stay before then picking up the Rocky Mountaineer from Banff through to Kamloops and Kamloops through to Vancouver. So again, a whole host of sightseeing included, day trip to Niagara Falls, the Icefields Parkway, a visit in Banff National Park, and also in the sightseeing tour of Vancouver. You also have the Jasper Sky Tram and Banff Gondola, as well as a lake cruise in the Banff National Park included too. So this is one of the experiences you'll have when you travel through Banff and you're on the Icefield Parkway day trip. You'll visit the Glacier Skywalk with fantastic views, as you can see there, particularly if it's as clear as that, when you're there over the wider area. And you will also have a scenic lake cruise in Banff. Great to get on the water and see this majestic scenery from the water, gives it a completely different perspective. Now, just something a little different and to consider, which incorporates the Canadian Rockies with some additional destinations. And through our sister brand, Amtrak Vacations, we have access to just over 500, all of the 500 or so Amtrak stations in the US. So why not combine a Canadian Rockies trip with a little bit of Western USA? With our Western USA and Canada journey here. So this is a 17-day holiday with a starting price of £3,499. So this one, slightly differently, will start in San Francisco. You have a 2-night stay in San Francisco before you travel overnight on board Amtrak up to Seattle. You have a 2-night stay in Seattle before continuing the journey up the west coast to Vancouver and crossing the border. Have a 2-night stay in Vancouver before then doing that via rail journey on board the Canadian, this time from Vancouver in the west across to Toronto in the east. So you'll spend initially 1 night on board via rail to Jasper, have a 2-night stay in Jasper, and we'll include that Jasper National Park sightseeing experience before you then board back on the train to cross to Toronto. So 3 nights on board via rail before arriving in Toronto for a 2-night stay to round off the trip. So something a little different, something to consider, combining the Rockies with a little bit of the USA as well. Just a few images of some of those destinations then. So San Francisco, right on the bay, and we have you stay in Fisherman's Wharf, which is a fantastic area. Lots of great seafood restaurants, great outdoor dining, right on the water. Really great place to stay. And if you wanted to also add in a few optional extras, we have things like the Napa wine tour, where you do a Napa wine tasting day on board the train, so nobody has to drive. Something to consider. And we can also do day trips from San Francisco into Yosemite as well. So if you wanted a bit of a national park experience added in, then that's also something that you could stay longer and explore a little further in the wider San Francisco area. You'll travel on board the Coast Starlight, which is one of the most scenic of all Amtrak's routes. And you very much hug the California coast as you travel up towards and further west along the west coast. So this is a fantastic scenic route to take, as you can see from the image there, just how close you are. And then you'll reach Seattle. Huge amounts to visit in Seattle as well. The Chihuly Gardens, for example. You have the Space Needle here for those fantastic views over the whole city and the wider area into the mountains too. So a lovely place to spend some time before you then travel into Canada and into the Rockies. Now, I wanted to finish the presentation today just going through the onboard experience for you onboard via rail and what the journey will be like, the options you have for onboard accommodation. So here it is. This is the Canadian, the flagship service from Via Rail on that Toronto to Vancouver route. And on board, you have a number of options. So we'll start with economy. Great for the smaller budget, very comfortable seats, similar to as first class airline seats, as you can see there. They do recline. You do have the attendant there to look after you. You have a range of snacks and drinks from the bar buffet area as well to buy, and you do have storage for your luggage above your seat. So that's economy. The vast majority of our customers, though, will opt for one of the sleeping accommodation types on board the train, and I'm going to share with you the most popular, which is firstly the cabin for 2. There are also cabins for 1 if you're a solo traveller and would like your own cabin, so that's also an option. The cabin for 2 here, as you can see, set up for the daytime part of the journey, has those armchairs there with the picture window, and you do have your own vanity unit, own basin, and running water there as well. From a slightly different perspective, here you go. So you can see you also get coffee, tea served in your cabin too. And then during the evening, that will be converted into an upper and lower berth. The cabin door completely lockable, really secure, and private space for you, and with shared facilities down the corridor for the toilet and the shower whilst you travel. Cabins for two, some of our most popular accommodation types on VRL. However, also you do have the option for prestige here, and the prestige cabins come with a number of added benefits. So first of all, you do have a full-size double bed. So here you can see the cabin's been made up for the evening or for breakfast here. You've got that full-size double bed facing out of the window. During the day, that's converted into an L-shaped sofa around the cabin for a really comfortable seat whilst you're travelling during the day. You have heated walls in the cabin, and it's also the only accommodation that has fully ensuite facilities as well. So a real one to consider if you're perhaps celebrating a special occasion, a missed birthday, a missed anniversary from the last couple of years, then consider upgrading to prestige. Apologies. The additional benefit, though, of travelling in prestige is that you have additional areas of the train to use during the day. So you do have the prestige lounge car at the back of the train that has those glorious images that you see behind as you travel. A great view, different perspective during the day service. So really comfortable seating. You can see there are chargers there as well for any of your devices whilst you're enjoying that change of scene. And backing onto that is the prestige bar as well. So you do have the option to make use of these facilities, serving hot and cold drinks, alcoholic drinks as well throughout the journey. And also from time to time during the journey, this is where you'll also find some experts join the train, whether they're experts in nature, history, local culture. They do generally put on some events within the train whilst you're travelling, wine tasting as well, for example. So it offers a really great additional benefit, not just the sleeping accommodation, which is enhanced, but also the daytime service as well. All customers have use of the dome car, though, so you do have this great carriage with the higher ceiling as you travel through that magnificent scenery, and all customers, regardless of which class of accommodation they're travelling in, can make use of that. And you do then finally have the dining car on board VRL. So again, all food, as with Rocky Mountaineer, all food made on board, fresh to order, by the chefs cooking in the fresh kitchen there. And they do a great job on board VRL of reflecting the cuisine as you travel through Canada. So the menu does change over the course of the 4 nights, reflecting the different parts of Canada you're going through. So sometimes there will be the salmon, sometimes there will be perhaps venison or buffalo, for example. And all, I should also say, all dietary requirements catered for as well. So if you are a vegetarian, a vegan, you do have allergies, they can absolutely take care of that for you. And if you choose to travel in one of the sleeping accommodation types, one of the cabins or prestige, then all of your meals on board are included in the cost of your holiday in the dining car as well. And just an example of some of the food that you could be enjoying on board. So thank you very much for joining me for our on-demand session on Canada today. Hope it's given you a few ideas of where you may be exploring in the coming year or two. If you have any questions, you do have the questions chat on here, and that will go to one of our team who will then be in touch. You can also download our brochures from the console that you see as well. But if you have any questions whatsoever after this, and you'd like to speak to one of our team, then do give us a call. We're on 0203 780 2222. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much for joining me, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.